Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay, so inshallah we're going to try and go through Surah Yasin. I think with the limited time we'll probably just have an overview of the surah. Obviously it's about 6 pages long, so we can't do that in half an hour, 40 minutes. I'm just going to start with a slight introduction to the actual surah. This is one of the, you probably know that this is probably one of the few surahs that people tend to memorize, kind of longer surahs that people tend to memorize, and it's probably emphasized probably from a young age. We're probably in the habit of reading it a lot. There's a hadith which says that Surah Yasin is the heart of the Quran, which is why possibly there's a lot of emphasis on it. The hadith is inna likulli shay'in qalban wa qalb al-Qur'ani Yasin, that for everything there is a heart, and the heart of the Quran is Yasin. Wadattu annaha fi qalbi kulli insanin min ummati. I wished it was in the heart of every human from or person from my ummah. Now, generally, if you look at the hadith about Yasin, the fada'il, the virtues of Yasin, most of them are actually weak hadith. Some are actually even fabricated. But we know that generally speaking, when there's weak hadith, a number of weak hadith, we know that we can use this, especially when it's in fada'il and it's in virtues. And there are actually a few hadith which some of the ulama have said are sound. So I'll mention a couple. One is Iqra'u Yasin ala mawtakum. Yasin should be read on your dead. Although there's a bit of disagreement over whether how strong this hadith is. Some said it was weak. Ibn Hibban, for example, said it's sahih in his collection. So this hadith can be understood in two ways. Either it means read Yasin on people who are already dead, or read Yasin on people who are approaching death, what's called muhtadar, somebody whose death is approaching them. So you probably have heard that people are encouraged to read Yasin when a person's passing away. And you've probably heard also of reading Yasin at the graveyard when you go to visit somebody, to read Yasin for them. This is what it's based on. And it's also the practice of generations of our predecessors, that they would engage in this practice of reading Surah Yasin. Some ulama have actually said that the one of the benefits of Yasin at the time of death is that it makes the ruh, or it allows the ruh to come out a lot easier. And there is this general idea that the reading of Yasin alleviates difficulty. Sheikh Talidi, who's like a Moroccan scholar, he says in his Tafsir that there's no particular hadith about this, but he says that lots of scholars, in other words, generations of scholars, have said that reading Yasin, so in other words, something that's called, you'd say it's in Arabic called mujarrab, something which is tried and tested. So something that's been tried and tested by scholars over a long period of time, that if they've read Yasin a certain amount of times, it would alleviate whatever difficulty they're experiencing. So some of them mention reading it 40 times or 41 times when there's difficulty. There's another hadith which Ibn Kathir says, Isnaduhu Jayyid, that its chain is good. Man qara'a Yasin fi laylatin asbaha maghfurun lah. That whoever reads Yasin at night time will wake in the morning having been forgiven. So anyway, there's many hadith like this, is just a few of them, which probably gives you an indication of why people take a lot of, or put a lot of emphasis on this surah. This surah is from the Makkah period. So as you know, the surahs are very different in terms of their content, in terms of the style, whether they're in the Makkah period or the Medina period. If they're in the Makkah period, they tend to be focusing a lot about belief, past nations, stories, that kind of stuff, the hellfire, paradise, and so on. Whereas when it went to the Medina period, it started to talk more about legislation, so things that we're supposed to do in terms of law. So they're very different, and also the styles are, the Makki surahs tend to be, the ayahs tend to be quite short. Okay, and so this is a Makki surah. There is one verse, verse 12, that some scholars say is Madani, from the Medina period. But generally, let's just say it's a Makki surah. So it's from the Makkah period. Interestingly, because the the content of it's fundamentally about Iman, your belief, and also about the resurrection, the hereafter. These are all kind of fundamental beliefs, and therefore Ghazali actually said that this is why the Yasin is like the heart, because these are the fundamentals, and without these fundamentals there would be no Iman. So this is one kind of take on why it's considered to be the heart of the Quran. So it talks about a number of things. It's going to start with a story, which I'm going to get into, and it's also giving the Prophet ﷺ a certain amount of relief that, look, this is not just you, it's happened to people before you. And also it's a warning for Quraysh that this is what happened to people before you, and therefore it's going to happen to you unless you take heed. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after that story, it will go on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the many workings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the creation. So it talks a lot about creation, and a lot of it is to talk to the Quraysh about, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do all these things, then do you not think that He's going to bring you back to life? Because obviously they were denying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have the ability to resurrect them. So that's quite important because it talks about the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being everywhere. Okay, so the surah begins Yasin. Now Yasin is what's called Huruf al-Muqatti'at. These are the severed letters, or whatever you want to translate it. There's two opinions on this. Some ulama were of the opinion that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the true meaning of this. Other ulama said it's possible to understand them, and they gave different interpretations. One interpretation, the camp that gives interpretations, one interpretation was that they indicate the names of the Prophet ﷺ. So some people believe that Yasin is the name or one of the names of the Prophet ﷺ, like Mudaththir, Muzammil, all these other names. Okay, so it starts with Yasin wal Quran al Hakim. Now this waw is what you call waw al Qasam, the waw of Qasam, to like swear an oath. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does this in many parts of the Quran, wa Shamsi, wa Duhaha. So there's many verses where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use the waw to begin with. So here it says wal Quran al Hakim. And so it's swearing by the Quran, which is a wise Quran. I'm using this translation because it's a bit easier. So that it's not thou, that, all that kind of stuff. By the Quran full of wisdom, he's translated it. Now, interestingly, the next bit is إِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. You are indeed from the messengers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath by the Quran that you are indeed from the messengers. Now this is interesting because this links to the previous surah. So this is something else in the Quran science, you could say. It's called munasaba. It's basically what is the connection between the surahs. Like, you know, they're obviously in this order, but what connects one surah to another surah? So in the end of the last surah, in Surah Fatir, they've actually sworn an oath that if a nadhir, a warner comes, they will follow him. So they've already kind of set this out in the last surah, at the end of the last surah. So this one starts with wal Quran al Hakim, innaka la min al mursaleen. So you are a messenger. So if they're true to their word, if they swore by that they would follow a warner, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by the Quran that you are a prophet or one of the messengers. Okay, so again, it's far too long for me to go through every single verse. So on the straight path, this is a revelation from the Almighty, the Caring. Interestingly, Tanzil Aziz al-Rahim, Razi says here that Aziz and Rahim, because you probably notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names are mentioned in different parts, different ones are mentioned, and they're always linked to the content of that verse. Okay, so this one is saying Aziz and Rahim, these two names, Aziz the mighty and the merciful. He's translated as Caring. So Razi basically says that if you sent a messenger, So in the past, you'd have like ambassadors. You'd send like an ambassador. If the king is not mighty, they might kill the ambassadors. They might not respect him. So he has to be mighty. They have to fear him enough that they're not going to mistreat the ambassadors. And at the same time, he's got to be Rahim. He's got to have this merciful nature that if they deal with him properly, he'll be equally kind of just with them. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying He sent you as a messenger, and who's it come from? The Aziz and the Rahim. So you can't mess about with this messenger because the Aziz is behind him, and also, but he's not just Aziz, he's also Rahim. لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمًا مَا أُنذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ. This is a revelation, to warn a community whose ancestors were not warned, so they're unaware. So this is because they say that there had been a big gap until the Prophet ﷺ, before a messenger had been sent, especially to the Arabs. So it's saying that they're to warn a community whose ancestors were not warned. So basically they were a community of pagans worshipping idols. A messenger had not been sent to them for a long time, and therefore this has been sent to them to wake them up. فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ. They're in a state of ghafla, in a state of neglect, so to wake them up. لَقَدْ حَقَّ الْقَوْلُ عَلَى أَكْثَرِهِمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. A sentence against most of them is justified. And just actually on that point where it says إِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ, that you are indeed from the messengers, it's actually in Surah Ra'd where they actually said Lasta mursala, you're not a messenger, you've not been sent. So this is almost like a response to that. إِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ, you are indeed a messenger. So because a warner had not been sent to them, therefore it's natural they'd be in a state of ghafla, in a state of heedlessness, and therefore they would need for someone to be sent to them. And then it says, إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا فِي أَعْنَاقِهِمْ أَغْلَالًا فَهِيَ لَلْأَذْقَانِ فَهُمْ مُقْمَحُونَ. Now this is where it kind of paints a picture for us to kind of visualize something. And what it's saying here is that we have placed iron collars around their necks right up to their chins, so their heads cannot move. So it's as if these prisoners of war, they're kind of all chained up and they can't kind of move, and basically the hands are up, so they can't, basically they're in this kind of situation, they can't move, and it's also an indication that they can't submit, they can't like prostrate, right? So they're in this state that they're almost like caught up, that they can't even submit. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ سَدًّا وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ سَدًّا فَأَغْشَيْنَاهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. So we've placed a wall in front of them, behind them, and hooded them so that they cannot see. So they've basically been covered by their own arrogance, such that they cannot understand these things. And then سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. That it makes no difference whether you warn them or not, they won't believe. This is really this is really a source of comfort for the Prophet ﷺ, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling him, look, you do your job, you do what you can, but even if you did everything in your power, some of them are not going to believe. All right? Some of these people are not going to believe, and this is not something new. This has happened to generations of prophets before you. You can only warn someone who follows the reminder and fears the Most Kind, the Unseen, so make him happy with the news of forgiveness and generous reward. Okay. إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُم. We will resurrect the dead and record all they send ahead. So basically this idea of resurrection, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to keep talking about this, because this was something they were denying. They were denying that they would be resurrected. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that they will be given life once more and held to account for their actions. And then it goes on to وَضْرِبْ. I'm just kind of skipping some ayahs, and just in case you're thinking, what's he doing? Okay, I'm just skipping for the sake of time. وَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا أَصْحَابِ الْقَرْيَةِ إِذْ جَاءَهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ. that how does he translate it? As an example, tell them about the people of the town where the messengers came. So he gives a story, and some people say this was in Antakya. Some of the Mufassirin have said it's in Antakya, but we don't really know for certain. And what happens is that there's a village. Some even said it was Isa at the time of Isa alayhi salam, and he'd sent some of his messengers, but the dominant position is that these were prophets, these were messengers, and they're sent to this village or this place. Two of them are sent, and they basically start being violent towards them, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends a third one to basically help them. Obviously help is in numbers, and they're met with lots of aggression from the people, and this is almost like giving a kind of parallel between what happened then and what's happening at the time of the Prophet in Makkah. Remember, he's in Makkah, he's in that difficult period, so he's going through all those trials and tribulations, and so this is almost like an example to them and also to him. This has happened before, and also for the Quraysh, that this is what happened to these people. So basically they fight the messengers, and there is actually one person who does become Muslim, and that is mentioned in the books of Tafsir as Habib al-Najjar. So this Habib al-Najjar is somebody who believes, some say that he had leprosy and he'd been worshipping these idols for 70 years and he had no response, obviously. So he met these prophets. They said that he used to live in the outside of the city or the town, and they basically said, look, if you believe, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cure you. And he said, really, if I believe Allah will cure me? He goes, yeah, Allah can do what he wants. So he becomes a believer and he's cured of leprosy. So he's full of joy, and he wants to take this, somebody who's, as you say, seeing is believing. So he's seen this, he wants to take this message to his people. So he sees that they're rejecting these messengers. So he says, وَجَاءَ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ رَجُلٌ يَسْعَى قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبِعُوا الْمُرْسَلِينَ. So he comes from the edge of the city, and he says to them to become, to follow the prophets, or follow these messengers. He says, now interesting, says, Ya qawmi, O my people. So this is obviously teaching us of how to address people, right? There's a nice way of doing it, there's a horrible way of doing it, isn't there? So he says it in a nice way, like, you're my people. In other words, I'm one of you, right? I would want for you what I want for myself, and because I've seen the light, I want you to see the light. I want you to have what I have experienced. So what do they do? And he also says, اتَّبِعُوا مَنْ لَا يَسْأَلُكُمْ أَجْرًا وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. He says, follow them who don't ask for any recompense. Like they don't want anything from you. They don't want any money from you. They don't want anything from you. All they want is your guidance, right? So, and this is the way of the righteous, that they do it for the sake of Allah. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. We feed you for the sake of Allah. لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. We don't want any reward or any thankfulness from you. And then it goes on, they end up killing him. Even though he tries to advise them, they end up killing him. Some say that they actually trampled him, some said they stoned him. I mean, yeah, he met a horrible death. So what happens is, قِيلَ دُخُلِ الْجَنَّةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, enter paradise. And when as he's dying, as he's getting killed, he's like shown paradise, like where he's going to go. And he says, قَالَ يَا لَيْتَ قَوْمِ يَعْلَمُونَ. Oh, if only my people knew, right? بِمَا غَفَرِ لِي رَبِّي وَجَعَلَنِي مِنَ الْمُكْرَمِينَ. So he's basically, he says, and this is interesting, it says that here he's following the footsteps of all pious people. Even though they're trying to harm him, he still wants good for them. He's saying, if only my people knew, if they could see what I could see, they would become believers. So he's still thinking about them. They're trying to kill him, and he's thinking about their benefit. That's not easy to do, which is why this person in other hadith has got a high rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing I remember, we were studying once, and one of our teachers was saying that, he mentioned, we weren't doing this Tafsir, we were doing another class, and he just mentioned this story. He said that sometimes on the outward, something looks like like a difficulty, but in actual fact it's mercy. So he goes, if you look at the story, on the outward, this man is a zero. I mean, everyone's surrounding him, stoning him to death. He's like nothing, right? He's humiliated, he's disgraced. But in reality, he's the one that's been honoured, and the disgrace is on them. You see, so when we look at it, this is the thing with the world, we can only see one perspective, right? We can't see the full picture. Only the full picture is obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So we think, oh wow, why am I going through this difficulty? Maybe years later you realize, actually that was beneficial for me, that was actually good for me. Or sometimes we have like illness. If you didn't have illness, you wouldn't know the value of good health. Right? So sometimes you have to go through difficulty to appreciate, and also through, if you're never tested, right? If you've never tested, then you can make any claim in the world. But when you make a claim and then you put to the test, then you find out who's just talking and who's actually, made of real stuff. So tests actually are very beneficial, even though we may not fully understand it, or obviously when we experience it, we can't get it sometimes. And then it says, and this is a warning for Quraysh, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he didn't like bother even sending the angels, right? It was just in kanat illa sayhatan wahida. It was just basically one like call from, and it says in the Tafsir, it's the Jibreel alayhi salam. Just one blast, that's all, and they were lying dead. So Jibreel was told just like shout kind of thing, and that was it, just finished everyone. So it's almost as if this is how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say, I'm not even going to send anyone. We're going to show you just from one shout, that's it, everyone's gone. So this is a warning to Quraysh that, look, you've got this chance, you've got the best of creation, he's guiding you to the right path. If you don't want it, look at what happened to these people. And it's easy for us, we can do it very easily. And that's why it's sorrow. Sorrow for, it says, what a shame here. Ya hasratan ala al-ibad. Ma ya'tihim min rasulin illa kanu bihi yastahzi'un. That it's a shame that when a messenger came to the community, they just mocked him. So then it goes on to, another interesting thing here is, just generally in Tafsir, is that this is you see this with lots of stories. If you look at the story of Yusuf, if you look at the story of Nuh alayhi salam, you're not given all the details. We're given kind of snippets of the story, right? And you might think, why are we given snippets? Because the Quran is interested in the ibrah, in the lesson. What's the lesson of the story? Does it really matter where this like village was? Does it matter how many people were there? What was their daily routine? All of that is not really important. The most important thing is what happened. And same thing with Nuh alayhi salam. Do we know what kind of wood he used for the ark? Did we know exactly? No, we don't know these things, right? Because that's not the point. The point is, what's the lesson that we have to learn from it? Which is why a lot of these details that you find in Tafsir, a lot of them come, or some of them come from Israeliyat, like the biblical narrations, because the biblical narrations have a lot of these details of these same stories, because they have the same stories. But the Quran's not interested in that. The Quran's interested in like, what is the most important thing that we need to focus on in this story? The rest is not important. Okay, so just take that as a note with all stories. There's always that's why different stories turn up, like the story of Musa alayhi salam turns up different places, because it's relevant to that, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about that time. And then it goes, this is almost like the second section of Surah Yasin now. It goes into the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he uses the word ayah 3 times. وَآيَةٌ لَهُمُ الْأَرْضُ الْمَيْتَةُ أَحْيَيْنَاهَا. So the sign, لَهُمُ الْأَرْضُ الْمَيْتَةُ أَحْيَيْنَاهَا. So then it will say a sign again, it will say a sign again. 3 times it does this. So the first time it talks about the earth, how the earth is dry, is nothing there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends water, and before you know it, you have vegetation. So this is obviously the correlation between this and the resurrection. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make something die and bring it back to life. So he's showing these people, look at the world around you. You can see it. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings life from nothing. And therefore, if he can do that, he's also able to do that after death as well. And then وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا جَنَّاتٍ مِّن نَخِيلٍ وَعَنَابٍ talks about the fruits that they would have experienced at that time. Where are we? Number 34. Yeah, so it says here, we have grown palm groves and vineyards. And the reason that's chosen is because that was the kind of most sought after fruits of the Arabs at that time. So if that's mentioned, then by default everything else is going to be mentioned as well. And then you eat from its fruit. أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ. Don't you do shukr? Are you not grateful for that? If you've got all these things, look about you, everything that's been provided for you, are you not then grateful for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you? And then it goes on to talk about the sun and also the moon. Okay, talks about the sun and the moon and how the sun can't overtake the moon, nor the night outspace the day. They're all floating in their fixed orbits. So basically this idea that it's precision, and now we're living in an age where we can study this to a high degree and we can see how precise it is, even though we can't still work at the beginning of Ramadan, never mind. But the moon is definitely there. Maybe some of us need eye checks, but the moon's there, the sun's there, and they're extremely accurate in their orbits. And I mean, this precision there, and we need that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put that all there. I mean, and you know, when there's an eclipse, when things just get changed slightly, you can actually, when you go out in an eclipse, you can actually hear the birds and everything all kind of creation goes a bit mental because they're like, what's going on here? What's happening? Because it's abnormal. So we need the fixed orbits of the moon and the sun. The sun is very important in terms of salah. For our salah times, we rely on the sun. And obviously fasting, we rely on the moon, and also to tell like the days and the time. And this is why it's very important for us, especially, that we get out and about. We're very fortunate to live in a country which is full of a lot of greenery. There's countless people that come to Scotland and say, you've got a beautiful country. When I used to work in the airport, a summer job, when I was doing security, this is before 9/11, of course. I remember Americans used to come and say, you've got a beautiful country. And I'd say, thank you, and you check the bags and it'd be a bottle of whiskey and it'd be shortbread. Anyway, so the point is that people come all the way from different countries and say that you've got a beautiful country, and what do? We just go from the house to work, whatever, right? You drive half an hour out of Glasgow and you're in greenery. So this is something that you should get out and connect. I mean, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about all these signs, even like electricity interferes with this, because you can't fully appreciate. I mean, if you've been in a desert and then you look at the moon and there's no light, you can fully appreciate the beauty of the moon. Here, there's so much light pollution that you can't fully appreciate it. So it's good to get out indoors, and then read this when you're in the outdoors, and you'll fully appreciate it. Do wudu from a stream, play in a rock, connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. And then talks about وَآيَةٌ, so the second sign, another sign, وَآيَةٌ لَهُمْ أَنَّا حَمَلْنَا ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ فِي الْفُلْكِ الْمَشْحُونِ. We carried them, what's called heavy laden ship, and most scholars say this is talking about Nuh alayhi salam, that as we know, humanity was saved in the ship of Nuh alayhi salam. And then we're given, it goes on to say, you're also given other things that you can traverse the sea in, ma yarkabun. And again, it talks about that, where is it? Yeah, if we wanted, we could drown them, and they will have no help, nor will they be saved, unless that is out of our kindness as a brief respite. I mean, there's a certain rahmah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows the human to go on ships. Maybe we can't appreciate this as much because we live in an era where we fly and stuff, but if you go back a couple of 100 years ago, there was no planes, no cars. If you're going to go to Hajj, for example, you'd probably go on a ship, right? You've been in the sea for months. And then if you saw a storm, if you're in a storm, you would appreciate this verse, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, if you think about it, a little ship, a massive ocean, a little bit of wind, it's gone. So there's a certain amount of rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a certain protection that He allows the sea to be calm enough for humans to use it, because He knows that human beings are in need of this. And this is the general idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the whole kind of creation submissive to human beings so that they can make use of it, because He knows that we are indeed in use of it, in need of it. Okay, I'm not doing very well, so I need to speed up. So again, there's a lot of toing and froing between the kuffar speaking with the Prophet ﷺ. At one point they say, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ أَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ. So when they're told, spend from what Allah has given you, it's very important. مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you this rizq. So when you give, if Allah's given you wealth, it's not through your own doing. There's a certain tawfiq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put to allow you to be in that position, and therefore you should spend, because it's not your rizq, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they basically say, well, one of the stories is that Abu Bakr, when he was feeding the poor, they said to him, can your God not feed the poor? He said, yeah, but he goes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the poor to be patient and the people of wealth to show compassion and spend. So it's like a test for both. It's a test for the wealthy and a test for the poor. And they kind of mocked him and said, well, if your God's so great, why can't you just feed the poor? So this was them being miserly and not wanting to spend. And then, like with many nations, they say, well, if what you're saying is true, bring it on, right? Bring on the punishment. And then it talks about the trumpet that which the angel Israfil will blow. He'll blow the trumpet, and this is a hadith where people will be buying and selling, and the hour will come. So Israfil will blow the trumpet, and everything will just finish there and then. Then he will blow the trumpet again, and the resurrection begins. Some Tafsir commentators have said that the difference between the two trumpets will be 40 years, but that's just an opinion. So then they're brought forth, وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ. So then they'll be brought forth, and this is where they will say, who woke us up? Right? قَالُوا يَا وَيْلَنَا مَنْ بَعَثَنَا مِنْ مَرْقَدِنَا. Now this, Ibn Kathir says that this is not a denial of the punishment of the grave, because what's going to come after that is more severe. Right? So in comparison to what's going to happen to them, this was nothing. So they're not happy about being brought forth. So they're brought forth, and then that's kind of talking about all the stuff that's going to happen to quote-unquote losers, and then it goes on to the winners, right? So inna ashab al-jannah, so the people of Jannah, inna ashab al-jannah al-yawma fi shughlin fakihun. Then it talks about what's going to happen to the people of paradise, what they're going to be given, reclining, eating fruits, and so on. Salamun qawlan min Rabbir Rahim. Peace will be said to them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then a warning again, Alam a'hadu ilaykum ya bani Adam an la ta'budu ash-shaytan innahu lakum aduwwun mubin. A warning that did you not tell the son of Adam to take shaitan, or not to follow shaitan or obey him, and that he is a clear enemy. وَلَقَدْ أَضَلَّ مِنْكُمْ جَبِلًا كِثِيرًا. That he has led many people astray. أَفَلَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْقِلُونَ. Don't you have intellect? Don't you use your aql? And then going on, it goes on to اليوم نختم في على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. So what will happen is the people on the Day of Judgment, the people like the kuffar of Quraysh, they'll be brought forth and they'll say, we don't accept anyone as witnesses apart from ourselves. Like they'll say, I never did this, never did that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, okay, that's fine. So their mouths will be sealed and their limbs will talk against them. So they'll basically be a witness against them. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again goes back to, so returns them to this idea that He's going to resurrect them. He has the power to resurrect, and says, وَمَنْ نُعَمِّرُ نَكِسُ فِي الْخَلْقِ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. That talks about the human being, how a human being starts off as a child, and then grows strong, and then at the end of life becomes weak again. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, look, I took this weak thing, made him strong, made him weak again. It's a cycle, right? So you're alive, you'll die, you'll be brought forth again. So this idea again of resurrection. And then وَمَا عَلَّمْنَاهُ الشِّعْرَ وَمَا يَنبَغِي لَهُ, that it's not poetry, that's what they obviously said about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَظَلَّلْنَاهَا لَهُمْ فَمِنْهَا رَكُوبُهُمْ وَمِنْهَا يَأْكُلُونَ, again describing the favor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done for the people by making things subservient to them. So they have things which they ride, which like they used to ride the camels, and things which they eat, which is like the sheep and cattle. وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا مَنَافِعُ وَمَشَارِبُ أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ, and obviously they benefit from it. It's not just the meat, they benefit from the milk, they benefit from the skin. So therefore, something very tangible, something that's happening daily in their lives. أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ, are you not grateful for, look what we've given you? Didn't have to. And also this idea that ظَلَّلْنَا, that we've made it subservient. Like if you think of it, like a camel is a really strong animal, yet you have little 7-year-olds that are just leading this camel along, and the camel's, subservient. He's just like following him, So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you look at, physically us against some animals are massive, right? And if they wanted to damage you, they can. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put it in such a way that He's given the human the ability to control them and not the other way around. Okay, unless you've been watching Planet of the Apes or Jurassic Park and they've brought dinosaurs back. Anyway, so then just at the end of this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings their attention back. أَلَمْ يَرَ الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُ مِن نُطْفَةٍ فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ, that don't you think, O human being, that we created you from a droplet of sperm, right? Which, if it was on your clothes, it's impurity. You have to wash it off. So we created you from this nutfa, right? And then you are basically arguing with us. You forgot your origin, you're arguing with us, right? They said that Ubay ibn Khalaf, he brought some bones, like kind of rotted bones or decayed bones, and crushed them from the Prophet and said, can your Lord bring these back? Look at them. And the Prophet said, yes. And he said, and you'll be brought forth and you're going to go to the hellfire. So that's what he got. ضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقًا, he gives an example to us and forgets his own origin. قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ, he says, who's going to bring these bones back to life? قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ, the one who brought these in the first place will be able to bring it back, right? وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ خَلْقٍ عَلِيمٌ, so he is knowledgeable. Obviously only somebody who's knowledgeable will have the ability to do that. And then talks about the tree. He says, look at the tree. The tree has life in it. It has water in it, sap. It's green. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the human the ability to make fire out of it. So it's almost like opposites. He's done, opposites. So in other words, just look at the creation around you. Forget everything else. Just look at the creation around you and think and ponder and use your intellect. Okay. So this is one of the things that because we're in a month of Ramadan where we read a lot of Quran, but it's very important to think and reflect. Don't just read it, but think and reflect about it, because it's very important, and we're told to do it continuously in the Quran. And then just at the end of the whole surah, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْءٍ أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونُ, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants something to happen, He just needs to say kun, and be, and it is, right? That's it. That's how easy it is. فَسُبْحَانَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ مَلَكُوتُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ, therefore glory be to that one who can do this, who has the dominion, all the dominion under His control, and to Him you are going to return. So in other words, it's talking about the qudra, the ability, the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in creation. If you can do all these things, then what you're talking about is nothing, because it's already done so much. Obviously the one who can do that as well. So that takes us very quickly through the surah and to the end. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq and give us the ability to read Surah Yasin on a regular basis. It said that Imam Haddad rahimahullah had a very special link to Surah Yasin. He used to read it constantly throughout the day, numerous times throughout the day. So obviously they're doing it because there must be a secret in doing so. So everyone should try to get in the habit. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasneem. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.